we were playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and I happened to get back into the game and try to keep passing third down. And Ben said, "Here's Eddie Rutkowski, he's back in the game, but don't worry, fans. Last week he had a concussion, but X-rays of Ed's head revealed nothing." So,
and now the bad news. Why the hell do I always get stuck speaking between two politicians? Mayor Joel, the best mayor money can buy. Ed Rutkowski, and Ed, thank you for whipping this crowd into a frenzy. You did a great job. But two politicians and me in the middle, I preside like our Lord between two thieves.
I made All-American at Kingston High School, and it's kind of interesting. I was recruited heavily by a lot of colleges, over 150 colleges. I went to Miami, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, Notre Dame, Southern Cal, everywhere. And everywhere I went, they said, you don't want to go to Notre Dame because they got this hotshot quarterback from California going out there. And I didn't know who it was, and I found out that it was Darryl LaMonica. He and I were the two heaviest recruited quarterbacks in the nation that year. So when we got out to Notre Dame, we were very wary of one another. Darryl heard the same thing. You don't want to go to Notre Dame. We got this hotshot kid from Pennsylvania going out there. But we became good friends, and it was kind of interesting. My freshman year, I was ahead of Darryl as a quarterback, and then our sophomore year, when we started playing, we had a series of injuries at halfback. Because I was the fastest quarterback, they switched me to halfback, and I always told Darryl, "Son of a gun, if you were faster than I was, you'd have been switched, and I would have made all the money that you made as quarterback." And our sophomore year, we had a backfield that read like this: left halfback Ed Rutkowski, fullback Joe Prokowski, right halfback Ray Ratkowski, and quarterback Darryl LaMonica, the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame.
What'd you sign for?
Kind of an interesting story. I called my mom. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother. My dad died in a mining accident about 4 months before I was born. I called my mom and I said, "Mom, I just signed a contract to play football for the Buffalo Bills." She said, "How much?" I said, $7,000. She said, "Oh, yes." And she said, "You're rich." And I said, "Not only that, they gave me a signing bonus." She said, "Well, what's that?" I said, "They give you money to sign the contract." She said, "Oh my God, no, how much?" I said, $300. She said, "Oh, you're rich." And I said, "Well, Mom, what do you need? What do you want?" And she told me, it's a true story. So I bought her a new pair of false teeth for $150. Took the other $150, and 4 of us drove down to Fort Lauderdale during spring break, and I picked up the gas and the hotel room and came back with about $20 in my pocket. Yes, this is it.
Welcoming newcomers. There are 5 rookies who made the Bills squad this year. They are Darryl LaMonica, Jim Dunaway, George Sames, Dave Bierman, and a rough-looking guy named Ed Rutkowski.
Cookie Gilchrist, I mean, unbelievable ball player. The best pound-for-pound ball player that I ever played with or against, because he did get traded and we played against him when he was at the Broncos. But just a super individual. Couldn't say enough about him. He was a unique individual. He was very flamboyant, but I'll tell you one, if you were in a war, you'd want him in your foxhole. If you were in your own end zone in the huddle, you want him in your huddle, because he always had your back, and he was just a tremendous individual. Stu Barber. Stu was a Penn Stater, offensive tackle for us. Very smart individual. A lot of people don't know this, but offensive linemen are considered very intelligent because of the schemes and the blocking assignments that they have to make. But Stu was a good friend of Al B. Miller's and Billy Shaw's. Dave Berman was a good old Michigan kid. Shucks, suspender type, didn't say much, but when he said something, he meant it. Albert DeBinion from Bluffton College, Doobie, could run as fast as he wanted to, and never got timed because they knew that whatever time it was, he could run faster. If somebody was behind him, you just couldn't catch him. In fact, he got the nickname of Golden Wheels. Jim Dunaway. Right now, Jim owns about all of Mississippi. Just a good old country boy, aw shucks like Dave Berman. And when he said something, you knew he meant it. And it was kind of interesting. Lou Saban was our coach. He was a great motivator, and he knew how to handle individuals. He knew he can jump on somebody to get the best out of them. But if he yelled at Dunaway, Dunny would just put his head down and he wouldn't react to it. So Lou always, if Dunny made a mistake, Lou wouldn't even look at him. He just would let Dunny do his own thing. Jack Kemp, my good friend and buddy. Jack and I were from Hamburg, and Jack came to the Buffalo Bills the year before I was there. We used to drive into work together at War Memorial Stadium, and we became the closest of friends. I still wish he was alive. I still can't believe he's gone. We had a lot of fun together, and I knew very on in our football career that he was going to become a politician, because in his off season he would work for various politicians. He was doing stuff for Governor Reagan at that time in California, worked as a newspaper writer. A cute story: when I was a rookie, we're on the coast, the West Coast. We used to have a 3-week trip. Would play the Denver Broncos, then go from Denver to Oakland, then from Oakland down to San Diego, and then come back. So we didn't have the luxury of flying back and forth in jets. We had those 4-engine prop planes. So we're down in San Diego, and Jack comes to me in Saturday morning. It's the day before the game, and he said, Eddie, I got tickets to this great rival game. And I'm thinking, wow, Southern Cal or USC or something. He said, do you want to go? I said, well, who is it? He said, Oxy Claremont Mud. I said, who? He said, Oxy Claremont Mud, Occidental Claremont Mud. I said, Christ, that sounds like a dirt fight. I didn't go, by the way.
Jeff Kemp was here last week, and he's very much involved in the youth marriage, family marriage.
Yeah.
And so I interviewed him about being a very young son of Jack Kemp. And he remembers very distinctly the story of his dad taking you, because you were a wrestler, weren't you?
Yes.
To a wrestling meet where he was at, and he was all kind of nervous that there's my dad and Ed Rutkowski, Notre Dame wrestler, but he thought he was a pretty macho wrestler too.
And Eddie Rutkowski, everyone's favorite in Buffalo, Notre Dame, former great wrestler. Dad brought Eddie to Union Street Elementary School in 5th grade to watch me wrestle against my buddy Doug Hebert. And Eddie was an All-American wrestler and football player at Notre Dame. And here my dad brings this great wrestler and football player to watch me wrestle, and I'm so excited to perform, and Doug Hebert pinned me. And I was shattered and so sad and embarrassed. Closest friends of Mom and Dad's. They spent tons of time together. He had as good a hairdo as Dad. They were famous for their hairdos. But he's a great man. He was a politician in Buffalo and kind of Dad's disciple.
Do you have any recollections of that for Jeff?
No, Jeff was a little mortified. Yeah, absolutely, because I kind of put wrestling on the map at Notre Dame. Won about 4 individual tournaments and went on to the NCAAs in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Although we didn't have a great wrestling program, our wrestling coach was Tom Fallon, who was the tennis coach. And one day we went into his office when he wasn't there, and we found on his desk the basic fundamentals of wrestling. We didn't progress that far. The other interesting thing about Jack was, I don't know if you knew that story about the All-Star game that was down in New Orleans. And Jack was there with Cookie and Ernie Warlick. And when they went down there, they had to go into segregated hotels. Ernie told the story, God bless his soul, he died a year ago. They were getting off the bus, and as Ernie was going to get off the bus, the guy said, you can't go. He said, no, I'm part of the Bills, or I'm part of the team. He said, we all got a colored hotel for you coloreds. And they had to stay in a colored hotel. In the stadium, in the end zone, it was split, coloreds and whites. And Jack told the story where he and Cookie and Ernie were trying to get back to the hotel. They were trying to, it's a true story, they were trying to get a cab, and the cabs kept passing him, and Jack said, well, let's go up to the street corner where there's at least a light. They got up to the corner, and the cab pulled up, and Cookie yelled, hey, we want a cab, we want a cab, and the cabbie rolls his window, and he said, y'all got to get a colored cab. And Cookie said, I don't give a damn what color it is, we just want a cab. And I recall they took a stand because they thought it was intolerable. All the black ball players said that they didn't want to participate in the game. They got the support of Jack, and all the other white ball players decided to boycott the game. They moved the game to Houston, Texas. But we were all caught up in the civil rights movement, not really knowing that we were part of it. In fact, Jack and I coming back from practice one day, it was on a Friday before going away for an away game, because we leave on Saturday for the game on Sunday. And Jack was going through the list, and he said, it's kind of interesting. He said, why do we have all the white guys rooming together and all the black guys rooming together? He said, why don't we have interracial roommates? I said, Jack, I don't know, but you're the captain, find out. So he called Jack Horgan, who was our PR guy, and Jack was like a father figure to all of us. And Jack said to Horgan, he said, how come you have us segregated like this? And he said, I don't know. He said, I thought that's the way you guys wanted it. And Jack said, no, it's not the way we wanted it. So we started having integrated roommates. Jack roomed with Art Powell. I roomed with Booker Edgerson. I recall the weekend of the Kansas City game, being with Booker. I learned about black eyed peas, and he learned about, as he calls it, kielbasa. and these guys today are like brothers to me. I mean, I never had a brother or a sister, but I had many brothers, and Booker and Charlie and Ernie and Jack and all those guys are our brothers. So, George Sames, Feta, I recall. He was from Michigan State. We played Michigan State twice, and in 4 years at Notre Dame, 2 games against Michigan State, George Sames scored 8 touchdowns. We get into training camp in Blaisdell, the first day where we're checking in to get our not equipment, but information and everything. And there's a line of guys getting ready to go into the office. And there's this guy in front of me, and he's bespectacled. He looks like he's about 5'8", and I thought, who the hell is this guy? You know, and I see his bag there. It's George Sames. I tap him on the shoulder. I said, are you George Sames? He said, yeah, why? I said, you're George Sames, the one who scored 8 touchdowns against us at Notre Dame? He said, yeah, why? What do you want? I said, no, glad to meet you. And he went on to become a great safety and just a real neat individual. He had a locker. Half his locker was filled with different kind of shoes for any kind of sod you'd play on. He had shoes for snow, shoes for rain, shoes for dry, and he always had pumpkin seeds. He'd eating pumpkin seeds and everything, and just a really individual. Mike Stratton, you know, the tackle heard around the world when we played the San Diego Chargers, and he hit Keith Lincoln. It was just an incredible situation.
Did you hear it?
Yes, I did. I was on the sideline, and you could just see the other team, just the wind taken out of their sails because of Keith Lincoln. Keith was their big star on offense. A cute story. We used to get, during the off season, they would send you your contract, and you didn't negotiate. They just put in what you thought you were worth. So I got a contract, and it said they paid me down for a $500 raise. And we go into camp, and we're in training camp for about a week, and Harvey Johnson comes in one day. Harvey was in charge of player personnel. He said, I want to see Rutkowski, Stratton, Butch Bird, and I think Harry Jacobs after practice. So we're thinking, you know, what's this all about? So didn't know what it was all about. So we're all sitting in a room, and Harvey comes in. He's all steamy. He says, "You sons of bitches!" He says, "You know, you're holding out. You're going to ruin the team." He said, "I don't know why you're doing it, but I'm going to give each of you a $1,500 raise. You take it or leave it." And I want an answer in 5 minutes. And he leaves the room. And then I realize it. You know, I had my contract in my dresser drawer back in my room. Mike forgot to send his contract in. Same thing with Butch Bird and Harry Jacobs. Mike said they had me down for a $1,000 raise, and we're all getting a $1,500 raise because we forgot to send our contracts. I went home and told my wife and said, "Henny, we just got a $1,500 raise." Oh my God.
If I had Eddie Abramowski here, and Abe would talk about Ed Rutkowski, what would he say?
He would say he loves the challenge, very competitive, and likes to play a variety of positions. Probably would get bored at one position. I made the team as a, believe it or not, a defensive cornerback. Slow white kid from Notre Dame. Go figure that one out. And then I got switched from defensive cornerback to offensive halfback. My second year, I played a year at offensive halfback with Cookie Gilchrist. Then I got switched over to play wide receiver. And in addition to doing all that, I was on special teams. I returned kickoffs, and did punt returns. And on Tuesday and Thursdays, I went down to Bill's office and swept up, and ended up playing quarterback, which is something I really loved to do. It was a lot of fun and the biggest thrill of my life. And in fact, we played so well. The biggest thing in my whole career was we had played. I started against the Denver Broncos. This was on a Sunday. And we were ahead by 1 point with 14 seconds to go in the game. I was so excited because we were going to be able to win this game. This was my first start. I hadn't played quarterback since high school. And Floyd Little came out of the backfield. Booker Edgerton slid. He cut a ball on the 14-yard line, ran out of bounds. 7 seconds left. They kicked the field goal, and they beat us. Then we had to play 4 days later on Thursday afternoon, Thanksgiving Day, on national television against the big bad Oakland Raiders. And here I am. I'm going to be the starter. And who is starting for the Oakland Raiders? Darryl LaMonica. And I had this vision in my head. I beat the Raiders. And we walk off the field, and I go over and I shake hands with Darryl, and I said, "I love you, buddy, but I always knew I was a better quarterback than you were." But it didn't happen that way. We lost 13-10. We had them on the ropes, and I was taking them down for a last-minute field goal to tie it. Bruce Alford kicked it 45 yards, hit the middle of the goalpost, and bounced back in, and realized that it just wasn't in the works for us. But it was my fumble against Oakland that got us the worst record that year, and we got the #1 draft choice, O.J. Simpson. So imagine, your claim to fame is getting the #1 draft choice. And Mr. Wilson and I always had that joke, and I'd always say to Mr. Wilson, you owe me a finder's fee. He'd say, "Well, what are you talking about?" I said, "No, a finder's, my fumble against Oakland. Well, you got O.J., the #1 draft choice." He said, "Oh, that's funny." I said, "No, you owe me a finder's fee."
Ed Rutkowski recalled a chance encounter with Don McPherson, a Denver assistant coach, years later after that Denver game, the Floyd Little game, in which McPherson recounted the play-by-play of this game. Do you remember that story?
I remember, yeah. McPherson was a coach at Syracuse. And I was walking through an auditorium, and then we had to go into a restaurant. And as I was walking through the restaurant, McPherson sitting at a table, he said, "Rutkowski?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Come over here." He said, "I want to tell you something." And he said, "I'm Mac McPherson." And he said, "You almost got me fired." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Remember you were playing a quarterback against the Denver Broncos?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, I was one of the assistant coaches with Lou Saban." Now, Lou was a fiery guy. He was very temperamental. And he said, "I was up in the press box, and Lou's on the sideline, and you guys look like you're going to win the game." And Lou gets me on the headset, and he said, Mac, the kid's killing us. He's killing us." He said, "If this kid beats us, you're out of here. You're fired." And he said, I said, "Well, Lou, all I'm doing is charting the plays." He said, "I don't give a damn. You're out of here if he beats us." And he said, "Luckily, Floyd gets the pass, and they kick the field goal, and we win." But he said, "I guarantee you, Lou would have fired me if he would have won." But Lou was a great guy, I'll tell you what. Talk about a motivator. My rookie year, we're playing a team in, I think it was the Denver Broncos and the Carolinas. And I'm on the kickoff return team, the kickoff team. And I'm the end man. And the end man, you have contained responsibility. You're supposed to go and make sure that you force everything to the inside so the guys can make the tackle. Oh, we kick off to the Broncos. I see this guy, man, I'm going to go in there and make the tackle, and I take a sharp inside attack line, and this guy gets around me to the outside, and I think, oh boy. And luckily he didn't score. He got tackled on about the 20-yard line. So I'm running off the field thinking, thank God he didn't score. And as I'm running off the field, I see Saban running down the sidelines, and I thought, well, where's he going? And as I get to the sideline, Saban comes over, grabs me, to this day I remember, grabs me by my shoulder pads, and he said, Mr. Rutkowski, he said, I think you're going to have a good career as a football player, a professional football player. But if you ever let a man get outside of you again on a kickoff return, it's not going to be in a Buffalo Bills uniform. You understand me? And I said, yes, sir. And I never did. You remember those things. And the other cute thing about Lou is I was single my rookie year until I got married the next year. And Booker Edgerson played at Western Illinois for Saban. And so Lou invited Booker Edgerson and myself to a Thanksgiving Day dinner with his family, which was very nice of him. And we're sitting there eating turkey and everything, you know, and after we get done eating, we're sitting there chatting and talking, and he sits down and he said, no. He said, you're going to be able to make a lot of money. He said, I want to make sure you take care of it, you know, save it, don't do anything stupid like going out and buying a brand new car. I had just bought a brand new 1964 Pontiac Grand Prix, and it was parked out in front of Saban's house. So after Thanksgiving dinner, you know, we're saying goodbyes and everything, and so Lou was walking out with us. I'm thinking, you know, where's he going with this? He walks out to the door, and then he walks out on the porch with us, and he's saying goodbye. Now, I have to walk down the path to the street. My car is to the left of me, and I'm saying, goodbye, Coach. I walk to the street and make a right. Go all the way around the block, wait for about 15 minutes, get behind the mailbox, crouched down, hid behind a tree, snuck in, got in my car, and drove away.
Speaking of stories, give me your best Cookie Gilchrist story.
We're playing the West Coast Swing, and we played Denver, we played Oakland, we're in San Diego. Weather is beautiful in San Diego. We have a pregame Saturday meeting and practice. We go up by the pool, and it's just gorgeous, sunny and beautiful. We're sitting there having some drinks and cookies on the diving board, the high diving board. And he's jumping up and down, and he's saying, hey guys, watch this. And we're sitting there, and he jumps off the diving board, and he lands about 2 feet from the side of the pool, almost hit the pool. And there's a big splash, and he's thrashing up and down, and we're all looking, going, what's going on? And Booker's sitting there with us, and he said, guys, the man can't swim. So we had to run over and pull him out of the swimming pool.
You here is just an outstanding pleasure for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, Ed Rutkowski.
Thank you.
Thank you.